Hello, I'm Eric Holdeman, and welcome to Disaster Zone, a show about emergencies and disasters that can happen anywhere and at any time. Today we're talking about one of my favorite topics, and that's drones. It seems like these are everywhere these days, and there's been plenty of controversy surrounding drones, but these flying cameras could play a very important role and useful role when it comes to emergency response. Today we're talking with Brandon McDonald with Royal Vision, a company owns and operates, and you do more than fly drones and take pictures, but we'll talk more about that later there. Brandon, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Eric.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do this for a long time since I saw you at a car show last July, and you had the box open and got your business card, so great to finally be here.
Yeah, that was a fun car show.
Okay. I'm sure eventually we'll have some pictures to show there. Drones is this popular term, and we're calling it drones here because people understand that. But there's other more, if you will, professional names like UAS, UAV. What are those terms about?
The unmanned aerial vehicle is more, it seems to be, definitely like you said, more of a professional term. You see it a lot in, Army uses and, more commercial style uses.
Okay. And then that UAS, unmanned aerial systems?
Yep.
Okay. For that. And the other thing, you brought and we have it sitting on the desk here, a quadcopter.
Yep.
And there's different types of drones.
There's
not just what other types of drones might there be?
We've seen, the fixed wing copters, or they're not copters, the fixed wing airplanes. They have the helicopter model designed looking ones, the quadcopters, and I've seen ones up to 10 blades.
Okay.
It's probably the biggest I've personally seen.
Okay.
So they can, I think the 3 or the 4, the quadcopter is going to be the most stable, the most solid for this style of copter. But I've seen bigger cameras being carried with drones with 10 blades or possibly more.
Okay. And my next question was going to be, why'd you buy this one? This is not something you, I don't think, pick up at Best Buy. But tell us about this particular drone, quadcopter, UAV, UAS. What's its features here?
This is called made by a company called DJI, and it's called the Inspire One. We bought this one. It's the top of the line consumer market drone for photography and videography. We bought this one strictly on the fact that it can be controlled by 2 people at a time. So I fly the helicopter, and then my business partner controls the camera. And that just makes it a lot easier for when we're doing different events or doing real estate or whatever type of uses we're doing it for. Whereas I can just focus on flying the quadcopter itself, and he can focus on getting the shot. So It's not when you see a lot of shots that you see people out doing, or they're flying and trying to control the camera also. And you just can't really, in my personal opinion, you can't get as smooth of shots and the ease of use. And if you want to get more of a complex shot, it's a heck of a lot easier to use it with 2 people.
Okay.
So that's why we got this one. And the camera, the quality of the camera is outstanding. It can be.
Yeah, you can shoot 4K for people. Explain what 4K is.
4K is the amount of pixels that are in the shot itself. Okay. So it's just the more pixels, the more high definition it is.
For people going to Best Buy shopping for a TV today, the next step up TVs now are 4K.
4K, exactly.
Right. Even though there might not be a lot of content.
Yeah.
They could get your content.
Yeah. So they have 4,000 color dots in them, so it just makes it a lot more high definition.
Speaking of 4,000, how much does this set cost?
The set we bought was about 4,000, and that came with 2 controllers and 2 batteries, and it came with a couple extra goodies that we bought. It was a hobby shop that we got off Amazon, so it came with a few extra stuff than you could just get from buying it from the DJI website.
Okay, and one of the things we talked about, maybe having you fly some footage beforehand, and we've really had ugly weather here, a lot of rain and that. And when I brought that up about rain, you said
doesn't fly too well in the rain. I'm not too comfortable. I haven't had a chance to give it I wouldn't want to give it a try, but I think that getting it wet would definitely blow a few circuits here and there.
Yeah, it's because you have a lot of electronics.
Exactly.
And how about windy conditions? Actually, the day today they're talking about 40-mile-an-hour gusts, and or 40-mile-hour wind, 60-mile. You're definitely going to not fly that, but what's the parameter for flying?
For this one, it actually does pretty dang good in gusts. I don't think we've flown it over anything with a sustained 17-mile-an-hour wind.
Okay.
It's what makes it nice. A lot of the copters now have GPS built into it, and so this one, almost at any given time when we're outside, we have at least 16 satellites connected to it at a time. So GPS helps it keep it really stable in the wind compared to other copters that are either maybe a little bit smaller or don't have nearly as good technology in it.
Okay, well, let's just touch briefly, and we'll come back to your, it's not the Phantom, it's the
Inspire.
The Inspire, there we go. But on TV, when there's problems with drones landing in the White House, I saw, and then hitting the Great Wheel, and we'll talk more about this later.
Yeah.
But they look like the Phantom, and you can't recognize they're white, and then they have a red stripe on them. Is that, yeah? That's
it.
And so what do those run? I mean, is the span?
There's, you can go on to, Craigslist, and people have, they have the original Phantom, which you can get anywhere from, a couple $100 or maybe $600 to $800 with a few extra goodies. Yeah. But they just came out a few months ago with the Phantom 3, and that's a little more professional style copter. They do have two different versions of that one. They have a silver and then they have the gold. So the gold is a little bit more professional version, better camera, a little more powerful rotors, and that one can run you about $1,500.
Okay, and if you go to if you want to just buy almost a toy. You can spend $100. Or?
Yeah, you can spend any. I have a little one that's maybe about yay big that I spent $30 on, or you can buy maybe a halfway decent size one. You can still buzz around the house for $50 to $150.
It's inside the house.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right. And I heard this figure. I don't remember what it was, but they were predicting it was tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of drones will be purchased this year.
It doesn't surprise me. That's for sure.
Yeah,
they're definitely gaining a lot of popularity over the last couple of years, and it seems like the Phantom was the one that really started pushing the boundaries of what these drones can do, and it seems like DJI was kind of the first leader in that. They put all the fancy technology in it to make it work.
And that's a Chinese company.
They're based in California, but I think they're made in either Korea or China. Yeah.
Okay, so back to your model here. What's the parameters for how high it can go and how far? I mean, you're not going to be able to fly it 40 miles out. I mean, what's your flight duration? Those types of things.
So I haven't pushed the limits to it quite yet. A little bit too big of an investment for us, and we don't want to be breaking any laws or anything. But
or not finding it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't want to crash and not be able to find it. But I have seen, the specs on it is it can fly almost 3 miles above sea level. And then as far as flying it away from you, I've seen you can fly it over 3 miles away from you. I don't know if the battery life will bring it back the 3 miles, make the 6 mile round trip, but at least you can fly it 3 miles.
That would be a radius, not the diameter, I guess.
Exactly.
So explain that for these, they're pretty sophisticated. You can, I don't know whether it's automatically set for it as the battery starts to get low. It knows where it was launched from. It knows where it is, and it can figure out, oops, I need to go home.
Yep, it has all that stuff built in right into the app and into the, the controller has its own computer system in it, the copter has its own computer system in it, and the battery has its own computer system in it. So they all kind of integrate together to work, so you can set your home point, and if you need to press this button right here, it's just return home. So wherever you're at, just press that button and it'll fly back to where you launched it from.
Within?
It'll fly, it's within a 10-foot
radius.
Really tight. It's really good stuff. And as far as battery length and time, you have all that right on the app interface. And the battery has built-in algorithms into it. So depending how far away you are, it'll always know how much battery it needs to make it back home. Okay. So it'll warn you when it's like you're pushing the limits here. You won't make it back if you don't start heading back now.
Okay. And how about the payload on this? I mean, we hear about Amazon.com looking at delivery. I try and read everything I see on it. And they've got like multiple versions they're testing.
Yeah.
Not only here in the United States, actually in other countries, because other countries are way ahead of the United States in permitting and the use of commercial uses of drones.
Exactly.
And that, but I want to say, I can't remember the weight, but it was at least 5 pounds.
Yeah.
So what could this one carry?
I haven't personally, done any sort of payload options, but I have, watched plenty of videos on YouTube, and people seem to be able to pick up, 3 to 5 pounds with no issues. I think, maybe 10 pounds is probably about the max that this one can carry.
Okay. Now, when that flies back to you, I mean, and if it's doing that automatically, will it automatically avoid obstacles at all, or no?
Nope.
Yeah.
It'll
Okay.
if you need it to return home, you can program the settings into it where it'll fly an extra 10 feet up from where it is, and then it'll fly and then drop straight down.
Okay.
So you can depending on where doesn't have anything in it that'll avoid trees or any sort of obstacles. So you kind of have to keep that in mind. But it will you can set it to fly to 65 feet before it returns home. So it'll go straight up, come back to, hover right where it's supposed to land, and then just drop straight down.
Right. So we were talking before the show, and you briefly mentioned you're the pilot, and then you have a camera operator on that. Explain the aspect where it's, you talked a little bit about being stabilized, but then also the camera's 360, you can just pan.
Yep, it's got full 360 gimbal on it, so you can, whatever way the copter's facing, you can spin the gimbal.
It could be
wherever.
flying towards or away from it, taking pictures of it.
Yep, and it also has the tilt on it is insanely good too. It's so you can
go vertical,
look straight down, or you
Okay.
can look almost straight up. I think it's 120 degrees.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, it does pretty well.
All right. So one of the things, since we're talking about Christmas gifts and all that, I can see people saying, "Oh, Johnny would just love having this." My 16-year-old or 17-year-old kid. What would you tell parents about buying something like this? And I always say, you're lucky when the 16-year-old makes it to 22 and he hasn't killed himself, type of thing. Just the judgment aspect of this, how you can get in trouble.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways, and that's kind of where I would say it's on kind of the parent's shoulders. Is my kid going to be responsible with this sort of toy? Because it is a toy in an aspect, but it can also injure people or property.
Yeah.
And so what I would say is make sure you're buying something you're not going to for your first drone, you don't want to buy this. You want to start with something smaller because you will crash it. It's a little bit of a learning curve. I can't tell you how many times I've wrecked my other copies.
Okay.
So
you want to wreck a cheaper one.
yeah,
That's
exactly. So you got to have a little bit of a learning curve. But as far as what I would try and tell parents is you don't want to spend too much on the first one, and then just make sure that your kid's not going to go out and make some bad choices with it, because that's just going to ruin
Might
the
need
fun for
adult
everybody.
supervision.
A little bit or something. My thought is if if you can't drive a car, you probably shouldn't be out flying a drone in public anyways. As far as just flying around your house, a little small one or whatever, that's up to you. But
Okay. But it is. We'll talk more in the second half about these judgment issues
Exactly.
Of it. So why don't we stop there, and then we're going to come back and talk about some of the issues we've seen with people, how they operate them, how you can hopefully prevent that, some of the rules that are in place from that, and talk about the applications where these things can be used also. So for you folks at home, we're going to take that quick break right now, and when we get back, we want to talk about that whole laundry list, and in particular, I'm interested in the emergency management applications for how you could use a drone. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back with more information.
So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice. And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
We couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Well, welcome back. Our show today, if you're just joining us, is all about drones, and my guest is Brandon McDonald with Royal Vision. And why don't we pick up kind of where we left off, Brandon, and really enjoyed our discussion so far, but on the second half, why don't you just talk about a bit what types of applications you use this drone for today? I mean, you're not a drone, you do operate a drone, but you do a lot more than that.
Exactly. This is an extra we're video production business, and it is just an extra camera that we use to help just get the better shot, get just in a different angle, a few different things. But excuse me, applications we've used it for. We've done some real estate stuff. We've done a few car shows. We've been to some outdoor concerts.
Okay.
Just any type of outdoor activity. I've filmed some wakeboarding stuff, stuff over lakes, and then just freelance stuff, going over nature shots and just having some fun taking some nice nature shots.
Okay, and so for a real estate shot, I expect somebody has some property, even just a small yard, you can kind of see that. You'd see the neighborhood maybe. I don't know how much you might show, but then have you ever flown into a home?
We did one time. It was a double wide door, and it went relatively smoothly. It was a little bit sketchy at first, but there was a little bit of a gust of wind that hit it, so it kind of blew it a little bit. But yeah, this drone does have, unlike most, it does have the capability to fly indoors without a GPS signal. So we did fly it through the double wide door.
Yeah, when you
it was
do
a pretty
that,
cool
it's
shot.
really incumbent upon the operator. It has total control for the stability.
Exactly. It's really touchy when you're flying it in tight spots.
Okay, all right. So we don't want folks to do that. So we talked about, the litany is always the bad things with drones. The pilot seeing them at 2,500 feet. Here in Seattle, one hit the Great Wheel, landed on the White House lawn. All these negative aspects to it. But so what's the altitude limit, by law that a drone should not exceed?
400 feet.
Yeah. And how do you know when you're at 400 feet or not?
The interface on the app shows almost everything that you need to know about the drone. It shows your speed, the height, the distance you are away from the drone.
Okay.
So you know exactly how high you are at all times.
Okay.
And it has an altitude limiter on it, so you can set it to once it gets to 400 feet, it won't fly higher anymore.
Okay. So when we see drones at 1,500 feet, 2,500 feet, people have deliberately, and probably if they can fly that high, they probably have a more professional style drone. They've deliberately disabled that.
Exactly. So, a lot of, like you said, the smaller ones won't have that stuff on it, but then those ones, you wouldn't really even be able to fly it that high anyways. So.
Yeah. So it is this human interface aspect.
Exactly.
The drone isn't bad. It's the people operating the drone that are the
decision-making skills on that issue.
That's right. And as we said, maybe a 40-year-old might need adult supervision for how it's being used.
You're probably right.
For that. Mm-hmm. So what about as far as getting close to people? I mean, what common sense things do you have about operating a drone? I mean, you talked about doing a car show and that. You make sure that no one's in the immediate vicinity. How do you do that yourself?
Well, we definitely try and make sure that we're well above, the arm's reach of somebody. So even if, we do like to try and fly it, relatively low on types of events like that, just, it's a cool angle just to kind of buzz over some cars. But we definitely, we are responsible about how high we're flying it above somebody. We're making sure that it's at the point where if somebody were to reach up and try and touch it, there's no way that they can even get near it. So we definitely try and keep it out of the way of people, and especially if we try and coordinate with the people that are around there and just let them know, hey, we're going to be flying this right over you. So either you can we're confident in our abilities, so you can choose to move, but if not, then that's just
Yes. So, I've read stories about neighbors shooting down drones that were flying over their house. It was probably their next door neighbor flying the drone. When you're out in the community, you're flying a drone, have you gotten any negative feedback about your activities, especially in the neighborhood or that?
Personally, we have not had any negative activities wherever we go. Usually people see this drone either when we're launching it or in the air, and a lot of people haven't seen a drone in person, so it intrigues a lot of interest in people. So a lot of people actually come up and will try and talk to us while we're flying it and everything. But as far if it's the houses that we're doing are relatively close, tight to each other, then we'll knock on the neighbors' doors and just let them know if they're home, what we're doing,
just
and not
being
to be alarmed.
responsible.
Exactly.
Okay. So let's talk about the reason I love this concept, and even when I just heard about drones, and I'd seen that early on hobbyist helicopters from 10 years ago, and those were very difficult to fly.
Oh, yeah.
Just it looked like a regular mini helicopter. It took a lot of skill to fly something like that.
Yeah.
But, and earlier we talked about different types. I know for the wildland fires here in Washington State, just this past season, they had a fixed wing drone that was used to help find out where the fire is. You can fly through smoke, and they have more sophisticated IR cameras for that type of thing. That fixed wing has a longer, flight path.
Exactly.
It can fly longer. I know in Africa they're using drones to deliver medicine to remote villages. They can program in the site where it's supposed to go to. It lands. They take the meds off, and then I don't know whether you push a button or whatever. They launch it. It flies back. I mean, there's just so many things for this. And I know we have some footage here of things that you've shot in the past, just out, but of river systems. What's been your experience of like trying to fly a river or a park or an event that? It's easy to do?
Yeah, definitely. You definitely want to keep your eye on, what the weather conditions. Weather conditions are everything.
Right.
Like we were talking about earlier, you can't fly into high a wind or rain. But as far as, just buzz, if we're flying into smoke or even, looking at, like you were talking about forest fires or even just, after a flood, after a lot of rain and
Right.
we want to see the aftermath or something like that. It's, definitely easy just to give it a quick buzz or even whatever somebody's trying to see. It's pretty easy to, get a good look at that.
In King County where we're at, there's a pretty extensive search and rescue network of volunteers. They're called 4x4, so they got 4x4 vehicles. There's horseback. There's search teams and that. I can see in the future having a volunteer drone team that, can cover a lot more area than this. And certainly, I suppose if there's foliage on trees, it might be harder from that standpoint, but there'd be a lot of ways to follow a river. Somebody capsized out of a river, you could go fly the river looking for them.
Yeah, and it definitely, I'd rather have something like this go down than put any human lives in danger as, while you're just starting to see, what when you don't know exactly what you're going up against. It's a lot easier to put that up there so you can at least get an idea on what's going on before you put any, human lives at risk possibly.
And there's all these inspection aspects that can be done. I know pipeline companies are interested in using drones because today they use helicopters. Very expensive to do that. They can, but you could inspect a dam. I know you've got some footage of a dam there, and taking measurements of like lake taps. We had a pretty significant water shortage this past year, and you're a skier.
Yep.
And knowing where those logs are or not, or the fact where it is, it could be critically important.
Exactly.
From that standpoint. And just an urban environment, too, to situational awareness after an earthquake, storm, or anything. The big thing is what's happened, where has it happened, how bad is it? We talked about all these wildland pieces. You could use it in an urban environment.
Yes, and seeing where the worst damage is and where you need to get first responders to right off the bat, who needs the most help, and and like we were saying, it's you can really get a good perspective on what you're going up against instead of just going in there without really any clear knowledge.
And do you think you could do? You wouldn't have the technical expertise, but do you think you could like fly around a bridge and do an inspection that way, where the engineer maybe is looking at your footage or telling you where to steer it to look for cracks or...
Exactly. If there's something he needs to see, then he needs, I need you to look at that specific pylon and take a look and see, or that girder or whatever that needs, we need to take a look at it. We can fly it right up to it, and he can see what he needs to see and go from there.
So how close would you have to get to be able to, see a crack this big or whatever?
The camera quality is pretty good. It is a little bit of a wide angle. This one, the particular camera that's on this one right now is a little bit of a wide angle lens. So you got to get a little bit closer than you might think. But you can put these things right up against something more or less.
Okay. All right.
So I'd say you could easily see a crack within 5 to 10 feet away from something.
Okay. And I just think about bridge inspection. It's easy to look on top, but you got to look underneath. And
exactly.
If you're a river or the Ship Canal Bridge here,
yep.
The West Seattle Bridge, that takes a lot more time to do it. You can do it really quickly.
Yeah, you can just do a nice long pan of the whole bridge. You can do it on either side and underneath, and so you can get a full 360 view of what you need to look at.
Okay, so let's just talk a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of activity. The Federal Aviation Administration is looking to put rules in place about flight and registration. What do you know about that?
So the FAA doesn't have, they can't make laws. They have regulations that they send, to Congress to see, is this something that we can put into law? So they have, rules and guidelines that they expect you to follow. It's like, the 400 feet rule, not flying within 5 miles of any sort of airport or military base. And as far as, if you have a drone and you want to go, make money with it, you have to file for, it's called the Exemption 333 form.
Yeah, FAA 333 exemption.
Exactly.
Right. I went online, looked for it.
Yep.
My wife's not letting me buy a drone, so we have to repair the stove first. The priority.
First things first, yeah.
Have to eat
Yeah,
before
exactly.
we have a drone. I recommend that be your priority, too.
No doubt.
Food first.
Yep.
So how about last thoughts for our audience about purchasing a drone, owning one, and operating it responsibly?
That's the big thing. We just need people to go and use these a little bit more responsibly, and make a little bit better choices on it. Don't buy a drone. You don't have to buy this type of drone for your first one. Definitely buy something a little bit smaller that you feel comfortable with wrecking, or buy a used one off Craigslist or something that you're okay with, maybe taking a few spills, because there's a little bit of a learning curve with trying to fly it. It's the like we were saying, responsibility is huge, and that's just where it's kind of, I don't want to say it's making it a lot harder for people like us that want to, do it for a positive good, to look in a positive light when, the media picks up on all this bad stuff that's happening and makes it a lot harder for us to look good in other lights.
Right.
So if people can learn to be a little more responsible or have a little bit better decision-making skills, that would just make everybody's life a lot easier.
Yeah, I would say the other thing you have to know, where can I go fly this?
Yeah.
One of the issues, you can't just go to any city park and fly this.
No. You can't.
There's restrictions.
Exactly.
Right?
So you're technically not allowed to fly within a state park. And like I was saying, you can't fly within the mileage between, airports or type of military base. And as far as flying through a city, you should talk to, a Department of Transportation or some city official, and at least let them know and see if it's, you're going to get the okay.
Yeah, right. So, well, listen, it's been terrific having you on the show, Brandon. A souvenir you get to take with you is this Disaster Zone coffee cup.
Awesome.
You cannot be drinking that and flying the drone at the same time.
No, you need two hands on the controller at all times.
Well, Brandon, this has been great having you on the show, and thanks for being part of this. And folks, I'm sure have found this very interesting. And for you folks at home, this is the end of our show. Thanks for tuning in. Learn more about drones and how you can operate one safely, and make sure your children, if they have one, operate it safely. And it's all part of being better prepared for emergencies and disasters. And if you're going to get prepared, today is a good day to start. And Brandon, why don't we just lift this puppy off?